information that is just now slowly starting to trickle out about the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment continues to blow my mind. I don't know if you watched my last video on this topic, but ladies and gentlemen, we were focused on East Palestine, and rightfully so. But all of us were thinking, this is so bad for the people in the area. How will this area, how will this town ever be the same again? But now the latest studies have come out, and apparently the chemicals, the toxins, spread to 16 different states and portions of Canada. So we were thinking that we were just, mainly worried about the population of this small town and maybe some of the surrounding areas and farmland. But now we know that the effects have stretched far and wide, folks. The report that just came out states, no lie, no exaggeration, over 110 million Americans have been affected by the toxins from this derailment. Affected in ways that they probably don't even know. Right now, hundreds, if not thousands of you all who are watching this video have knowingly or unknowingly been affected by these chemicals, and they chose not to say anything until over a year later. But that's where we're at in this story right now. And the situation is so heartbreaking because people who lived in East Palestine, a lot of them had to move, right? Because, it's almost uninhabitable. The little creeks outside their house are filled with chemicals. The air is hard to breathe. It's a weird smell. Kids are getting rashes. So a lot of people, if they could afford to, and a lot of people couldn't afford to, but they made it happen anyway, a lot of people moved. And now, heartbreakingly enough, these people are finding out with these new studies that they didn't move far enough. People moved 2 or 3 towns over. Some people moved the next state over. And now they're finding out, hey, you didn't get far enough away from these chemicals to not be affected. And that's kind of demoralizing when you think about it. Like, sure, obviously, if you live a couple of states away, it's better than being at ground zero. But damn, if your whole point was to move your family away from this toxic stuff, and then you find out after you busted your behind, somehow relocated your family, you find out, hey, you're still in the contamination zone. Because it turns out that like 1/3 of America is in the contamination zone. But before I go any further, let's go ahead and roll this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
Lived 4 miles from the spill and was forced to move when the dangerous chemicals began making her sick. Hillary, it's good to see you again. I appreciate you coming on. And can I ask, what went through your mind when you saw these study headlines, when you learned that the chemicals had spread to 16 other states?
Well, it was quite heartbreaking because I relocated to the state of New York to get away from these chemicals. And according to this new study, it wasn't far enough. And I don't know how far enough would be. This study claims that 1/3 of the United States population, 110 million people, have had some impact from this. And at least their weather has been impacted by this. So I'm mad. I thought that I had went far enough, and according to the study, I did not.
What needs to be done? Do you hope this study will push the EPA to do more in terms of cleanup and monitoring?
Yes, absolutely. We're still waiting on a major disaster declaration or a public health emergency. That is something that's in the EPA's hands that they can do. They can claim that this is a public health crisis. Also, there's a DOJ settlement that is still up in the air. There's a public comment period coming up. We would love to see it a public hearing. That way, residents like myself can come and tell their story. And that settlement right now only has health monitoring monitoring for about 2 miles. And if we are saying that, this had impacts 1.4 million square kilometers, I do not think a 2 mile health monitoring radius is enough.
Yeah. I always appreciate the chance to get to speak with you. We've spoken before, and I know that this plan was not your plan to become an advocate this way. Your entire life was literally derailed when this happened. Can I ask, what were the initial health effects? Can you remind us when this first happened? And how has your health been since you left that area? Any long-term effects?
Yeah, so immediately following the open burn of vinyl chloride, I was getting rashes, migraines, my feet turned purple. I had a lot of congestion issues. I ended up having an upper respiratory infection. Just a couple months ago, I had another upper respiratory infection. It ended up being bronchitis, and this was shortly after News Nation announced that they were digging up vinyl chloride, contaminated soil in East Palestine, and I just so happened to be there working. So the health effects continue to happen. Actually, I had just talked to my doctor this morning, and I'm going for some additional testing because of the rashes that I'm getting and some of the different respiratory issues I'm still facing, even though this is, a year and a half after the fact.
Yeah.
So, not being in my home helps, but even that, isn't solving my issues right now. What I need is health care, and that's not what's available to us at the moment.
And I know it was tremendously difficult to uproot your entire life and make this decision. And there are so many of your community members who were not able to relocate and get out of here. What do you feel for all of the people, all of your neighbors who are still continuing to live there every day?
It's tough. There's definitely some guilt around the fact that, I was able to relocate. Now, it wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs. I was able to furnish my home through mutual aid and things like that. But there are a lot of people that have not been able to do that. That's not fair. And things like a better class action lawsuit and a better Department of Justice settlement might make it so people can do that.
Understood.
So people
Understood.
stories themselves. Stillhere.org. It's a storytelling project by Cleaner Action Fund and Riverwise, and it goes into detail different stories of people living in hotels, people who have returned to their homes. Highly recommend everyone goes and watch these stories for themselves.
Thank you. Hillary, with the 1 minute we have left, I do want to ask, Norfolk Southern estimates it will spend more than $1 billion to fix the contamination. And as you alluded to, the company agreed to pay $600 million to settle a class action lawsuit. Are you part of that lawsuit? What are your thoughts on this response? What are your thoughts on Norfolk Southern's response after the disaster and how it continues today?
I think it's not enough. I think that it sounds like a really big number, but when it comes down to it, families like me, we would be, getting a couple $1,000s. And also the fact that you have to sign away your future legal rights is very concerning. So my family has decided to opt out of the lawsuit. And a lot of people don't know you have to do that or you're automatically opted in. So I highly encourage, if you're in that 20-mile radius, to look into it.
This is clearly going to be like one of those infomercials in the future. Do you or someone you know suffer from mesothelioma? Or no, did you or someone you know drink the waters at Camp Lejeune in 1978? Well, you maybe, you know what I mean? I assure you guys I would encourage you guys, that's the word. I would encourage you guys to look into things. If you live in one of these 16 states that are affected, or if you live somewhere close by and they've been kind of telling you there's nothing to worry about, look into it. Because there's going to be some class action lawsuits going forward. Who knows what may be happening going forward? And this is just what they're comfortable telling us now. You have to remember, folks, that they didn't want to tell us about this after it happened. We had to wait all the way until now to find out this information. So I imagine another year from now, another 2 years from now, we'll be hearing other information. And as the woman stated in the clip we just watched, they've been, I guess, doing health checks on people who live within a 2-mile radius Meanwhile, now we know it's spread to 16 different states. This is just so much worse than I ever imagined when I was in the thick of things covering the story right after that train derailed. This is just so much worse, and it's not an exaggeration at all. Like, I never imagined that we would have a situation where this much area, this large portion of America is affected. And I don't know how many of you all were watching my coverage back when this happened, but a lot of the waste, a lot of the toxic waste from the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment, guess where they were taking that toxic waste to store it? They were literally driving it across the country to places in Texas, North Carolina, you name it. So in some odd way, this little derailment in this little town that most of us didn't know existed, the toxins from this derailment, they ensured, they made sure that it spread across the whole entire United States. Sure, only 16 states were affected by the toxins that they burned into the sky, but all of the waste, most of that went to places in the South. So they made sure, chances are where you live, there's a waste dump not too far from you that contains some of these toxic chemicals and toxic materials. So we looked into all of that back when the story happened. So to now know what we know now, it's scary because, listen, I told you all when this happened, I knew that it was worse than what we were being told, right? We know that all the time when it comes to something like this. They downplay how bad things are. But I was never prepared for the information that we've been getting over the past couple of weeks. But now I'm scared because knowing that, okay, this information is coming out now and they're comfortable with telling us this, what are they not comfortable telling us? Because I can't imagine it being much worse than spreading across 16 states and affecting 110 million people. I can't even fathom it being worse than that, but this is what they're willing to tell us. So what are they not willing to tell us? How affected are some of these areas? How affected are some of these farmlands, these crops, you name it? But as of right now, I'm happy that this information is coming out. I'm scared about what information may come out in the future. But just looking through the things that have come out in the past week, it's like it's a boatload of information that I never expected. I never in a million years would have expected it to be this bad. But for now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.